I'm Herman Quirmbach, State Senator. I was the guy whose name was on the invitation that you got, remember? Thank you all for coming. I'm so glad to see such a fine crowd turning out. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about and a lot of plans to be made and some entertainment to be had as well. So it's real good of you all to come tonight. We have a couple of guests from one side of the state and one from the other side of the state who both accomplished things and are accomplishing things. I want to start off. The program is got the order, but I got to turn that order around. Josh Turek is a state representative from the Council Bluffs area, and he is one of our candidates running for United States Senate. And Josh has a very interesting background, a couple of gold medals from the Paralympics. He can shoot a basketball, well, better than I ever could. Let's just leave it at that. So I'm going to put him to speak first because he's got another gig tonight. He's going to be on MSNBC tonight. So Josh, come on over.
Thank you, Senator.
Good to see you, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Let's see this one. Hello, hello. Everybody hear me? Hey. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. First off, once again, the winds of change are here in Iowa. We won that special election. That shows us we've won 3 of the 4 now. Amazing. I'm State Representative Josh Turek. I represent Council Bluffs and Carter Lake in the State House. I'm the first permanently disabled member of the Iowa Legislature. Thank you. It actually is. It's one of the biggest points of pride for me to finally have a representative for the 1 in 5 Iowans that are either blind, deaf, intellectually disabled, or physically disabled, because there are an enormous amount of barriers for these folks, and it really has been a huge point of pride. One of the things that we are the House of the people, and yet we didn't even have a ramp in the Iowa House for individuals to be able to go down there, and so it has been a huge point of personal pride for me to be the first permanently disabled member and also to represent all of Southwest Iowa in my hometown of Council Bluffs. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, my story, what I'm going to try to accomplish as your United States Senator, and you know, talk about maybe some of the few things that we've got going on and what an amazing opportunity we've got here in 2026. So I was born and raised in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Council Bluffs is a working class community. 65% of my community is at or below the poverty line. I grew up into a large working class family. We were probably lower middle class, or sometimes poor at worst. I had the Goodwill hand-me-downs for clothes. I grew up on a lot of social safety nets. I was one of these kids that I was going to free summer lunch programs. I was using the AEAs. As you can see, I'm physically disabled. I was born with my condition. I was born with a condition called spina bifida. This was due to my dad's exposure to Agent Orange serving in Vietnam. I had my first surgery at 1 day old. I had 21 surgeries by the age of 12. Almost all of these took place at Shriners Hospital in Minnesota. It was the only way that my family could afford it. Thankfully for me, what really saved my life was I was exposed to wheelchair basketball, an adaptive sports program. Fell in love with wheelchair basketball because I was one of these kids, you know, growing up with economic adversity and certainly healthcare adversity. I was really struggling, was ostracized, was bullied, didn't have a whole lot of friends. Threw myself into wheelchair basketball. Thankfully, because of wheelchair basketball, I got a partial scholarship to go to Southwest Minnesota State University, along with the help of vocational rehabilitation. I got a bachelor's degree in history. I got a master's degree in business administration. And then while I was there, I had a good college career in wheelchair basketball. Scored 63 points in a game, scored 4,000 career points, which I'm very proud of. I just nearly eked out Caitlin Clark. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to do something that I didn't know even existed, which was to play professional wheelchair basketball. It doesn't exist here in America. So I had the opportunity to play wheelchair basketball in places like France and Spain and Italy. See all these places I'd only read about, history books. But the thing that I'm really the most proud of, which was always my goal from day one in my basketball career, was to represent my country on the field of play. That was to represent the United States in the Paralympics. Had the opportunity to do that 4 times, and I was a part of a team that we went 28 years without winning a gold medal in wheelchair basketball as a basketball nation. I won back-to-back gold medals, representing the United States in wheelchair basketball. Very proud of that. But the athlete dies 2 deaths, and I knew that I wanted to have a part B of my life that was as successful as the part A or more so. Some of the other things that I've been involved with. For more than 10 years, I've been a director of a nonprofit organization where we provide free summer camps for disabled kids. This was because of the profound impact that adaptive sports had made on my life. I wanted to be able to give that back to other children. They don't see enough disabled individuals as role models. Another thing that I did when I finished my basketball career, I started working for a company called New Motion. I was assessing and providing wheelchairs for disabled individuals, people with debilitating conditions like muscular dystrophy and Lou Gehrig's disease. The reason why I got interested in running for state-level politics was every single day we were dealing with unnecessary denials and delays from the managed care organizations. This is since Iowa has privatized our Medicaid system. We were showing a 1,000% increase in the denial rate on absolutely life-essential health care. Things like power wheelchairs for someone with muscular dystrophy or ALS, where it's from the time they're assessed to the oftentimes death is only 18 months. These are people that do not have time for denials or delays. And I thought this was fundamentally wrong. Then, as I had said to you, I did a little bit of research, found out that in Iowa we had never had a permanently disabled member in the Iowa Legislature. 150-year history of the state. 150 members of the legislature. We've got 1 in 5 Iowans that are blind, deaf, intellectually disabled, or physically disabled. I thought this was wrong, that we should at least have a seat at the table in some representation, especially for all these unnecessary barriers to healthcare and employment. So, as we have to do, those of us that enter into public service, had to look at the man in the mirror and say, well, someone's going to have to do something about this. I knew in very western Iowa, portion of the state with Senator out there, Mr. Gromstall, that's right, my great friend. We're out there in very red western Iowa, and I knew it was going to be very difficult in 2022 to be able to win. Most people said you couldn't do it, you can't win. I said I'm going to do this the exact same way that I've done with my basketball career and everything else in my life. I'm going to go out and work as hard as I can every single day. So what that meant for me, Council Bluffs is the one part of the state with a lot of hills, and so that meant knocking a lot of doors with a lot of stairs. And so, I don't know, have any of you seen my video, my launch video? Excellent. So that's exactly what I did. I went out every single day and I drugged my wheelchair up to every single door, talking almost exclusively to Republicans and independents about what I was running for and what we were fighting for and the reasons why we were doing that. I talked about the kitchen table issues, driving down costs, a livable wage, doing something to support our healthcare system, affordable, accessible healthcare, pharmaceuticals, doing something about our cancer rates, clean water. This is the thing, supporting our public schools. And thankfully, yeah, absolutely. Thankfully, I outperformed the top of the ticket by 13 points and won by just 6 votes. So never doubt that 1 vote makes a big difference. And in 2024, in a county that Trump won by 20 points and in communities that I represent that Trump won by double digits, I was able to win this most recent election by nearly 6 points, outperformed by 14 points. Very proud of that. So now, I am running for the United States Senate. And here's one of the reasons. There's many reasons why. One of the reasons why is when the last legislative session finished, the very day that it finished, I got in my car and I drove out to Washington, D.C. I drove out there because I knew they were going to vote on the big, beautiful bill. And I went up there and I said, there's no way that these Iowa delegates are going to plead ignorance to what's going on here. So I brought a lot of materials and I said, here's all the people that are going to lose their health care. 110,000 Iowans that are going to lose their health care. Thousands of people are going to lose their food assistance. But along with that, I went through point by point on the 140 organizations that were going to lose funding, often many of those for health care and disability organizations. Met with people like Joni Ernst and Senator Grassley face to face. Said, oh, don't worry, we're going to protect Iowans on Medicare. Now look, I'm the ranking member of HHS budget. I understand firsthand, already our Medicaid system is dramatically underfunded and broken, dramatically. And then for her to turn around and Joni to make these votes, and then to say, well, all Iowans are going to die in that very callous way, and then to make the smug, condescending apology in the graveyard. I said, that is wrong, and we need to once again have a senator from Iowa that represents the people of Iowa, and knows at a firsthand level. I understand firsthand the struggle on economics. And there's a lot of people out here in Iowa that are struggling to keep food on the table and to keep a roof above their heads and are struggling with health care. And we need to once again have a senator from Iowa that is fighting for Iowans and not just corporations, not just lobby, and not just billionaires. Here's the things that I want to do as your Iowa senator. The first thing is Iowans deserve to have a livable wage. The fact that we have not raised our minimum wage, even though every single one of the surrounding states, we still have 2% of Iowans that are making minimum wage, it is fundamentally wrong. Iowans deserve to have a livable wage. The other thing that we are going to fight for is that health care is an absolute human right. Every Iowan, regardless of where they live, where they've grown up, deserve access to quality, affordable health care. It is a human right. The other thing that we're going to fight for is affordable pharmaceuticals. Because far too often in my community, as I'm out knocking doors, I hear too many people saying, I've changed my job, I've changed my insurance, I can no longer afford to take my medication, I can no longer afford my insulin. That is fundamentally wrong. To live in the richest nation on earth, and people are having to make the determination, do I take my pills or do I pay my bills? It's wrong. We're going to have affordable health care. We're going to have affordable pharmaceuticals. Another thing that we're going to fight for is clean water, because every single Iowan deserves access to clean water, especially in a state. Another thing that we're going to fight for is to do something about our crisis of cancer. And these two things, the water crisis and the cancer crisis, are directly related. And this is something that has affected me personally. My grandmother died of pancreatic cancer. My father, due to his exposure with Agent Orange, has had throat cancer and also skin cancer. I found out nearly the day that I announced for this campaign that my sister has stage 2 breast cancer. And I will tell you a story of how terrible this current healthcare system is. She is someone that has been doing the right thing. She is employed. She has private insurance. She found out that she has stage 2 breast cancer. Her private insurance came back to her and said, the PET scan that you need to find out if the cancer has spread to other places in your body, sorry, unless you have stage 3 or stage 4, we can't cover it unless you can pay $30,000 out of pocket. This is what we are fighting for. Healthcare is a human right. Another thing that we are going to fight for along with healthcare is, if I'm your U.S. Senator, we are going to codify Roe and fight for women's reproductive rights. I've gone too long. I promised Senator Quirmbach I would only talk for 10 minutes, but here's what I'm going to leave you with. I am someone that knows firsthand the enormous impact that a great senator from Iowa can have. That's at the individual level, that's at the state level, that's at a societal level. I am only here because of the great work of our longtime senators, my hero, Senator Tom Harkin. If it was not for the work that Senator Harkin did on the American with Disabilities Act, I never would have had the on-ramp onto society to be able to have access to certainly the occupational or educational opportunities that I have been afforded. I am only here because of that work. Iowans, we deserve to once again have a senator that is fighting for the people, that is fighting for the middle class, for working families, for small farms, for small business. A senator that is fighting for social and economic justice, fighting for these social safety nets like Medicare, like Medicaid, like Social Security, like Senator Harkin did, fighting for the most vulnerable, the elderly, poor children, the disabled, fighting for Iowans and not just corporations, lobbyists, and billionaires. That's what I will do as United States Senator, and I hope you all support me. Thank you.
and we sure need a fighter like that on our ballot representing our party. Okay, well, I've got somebody else to introduce tonight. You know, we were talking earlier about Silvera and everybody else working on that special election campaign a week and a half ago now. Barbara Wheelock organized some people here locally to do postcards and phone calls. I don't have the list of people that she got to work on that, but there are a lot of people who were able to work and contribute time and help persuade voters and inform voters about the special election. So thank you to all of the people. Are there people here who worked on postcards or phone calls? Or all right, give them a... And like I said, winning that seat broke the Republican supermajority and gave us the opportunity to have some power in the Senate to be able to turn down lousy appointees. We wouldn't have that opportunity, though, if the stage had not been set earlier in this year with a different special election. Over on the other coast of Iowa, over in the Clinton area, DeWitt area, and the vacancy there, the Republican, Chris Knoyer, that's the way you pronounce it, rhymes with Annoyer. She got appointed as lieutenant governor when the previous lieutenant governor, I forget his name, but he decided that there was more money to be made in the private sector than to ride around with Kim. Can't blame him there. So they appointed Chris Knoyer as lieutenant governor, thinking, well, she's from a safe Republican district. And Mike Zimmer said, we'll see about that. So we had a little special election there towards the end of January, and I was over there a couple of very cold Saturdays as well. But that effort and a lot of other people from all over eastern Iowa helped out with that election, and guess what? We flipped that seat too. So I made Mike a deal. I would do a fundraiser for him if he'd do a fundraiser for me, and he jumped at the chance. So here is Senator Mike Zimmer.
This one's still on? There we go. Well, thank you very, very much. I will tell you that 7 months ago, the temperature was a little different than it is out right now. And I will just say this, one, thank you to Story County Dems. I mean, because this was a statewide effort. Everybody was all hands on deck to do this because Lieutenant Governor Knoyer was really going around saying repeatedly to groups, I won that seat by 22 points. It's safe. All you got to do is run somebody with an R by their name, and that's going to be fine. And as Herman said, we said, well, let's just see about that. I will tell you this. Coming off that November 24 election, we were out, my wife and I were canvassing for all of our local folks that were running for office, and as with all of you, that election was devastating. I just had to turn the radio off. I had to just step away because, quite frankly, for my mental health purposes, I was like, I just can't take this anymore. So when Christmas was coming around, then all of a sudden, December 16th, all of a sudden this seat comes open, and I'm already a year and a half into my school board position, and I'm approached by, well, you should run. I said, no, we got the holidays coming up. I have no interest in that. And I said, I made a commitment to my local community to serve on the board. And then you know how it goes. Our Iowa Democratic Party chair, Rita Hart, happens to live in my district, friends with her, and she is tenacious. She just would not let off. And I was like, well, as Josh Turek said, you look in the mirror and you say, if not me, who? Because I was like, could somebody else, anybody, somebody else want to do this? And I was like, well, This is not exactly what I had in mind for retirement, but you know what? Let's give it a go. Let's make a try at it. So again, my name is Mike Zimmer. My wife, Tammy, is over here waving. I will tell you that running for office in this day and age, it is a family event. My wife, Tammy, and I have 5 children. 3 of them are public school teachers. So we talked about the impact that this is going to have, because I said, here's going to be the playbook. 1, you're for men and women's bathroom, you're for men playing women's sports, you're for open borders, and you spend a lot of money. It's what it's going to be. And my mother, she likes to protect her oldest son. I said, Mom, I'm just telling you, you just got to be ready for this. Well, after a family conversation, I said, we're in, because you cannot do this just by yourself. You cannot do it, because it impacts everybody that you know. And so with that, I would say for my family, both my extended family and my immediate family and kids, they all stepped up. And then in combination with my Democratic family, we were able to get to a finish line. But now we got to get through the 2026 election, because then all of us in the Senate that have odd number Senate seats, we're all up in 26. The even numbers are up in the following year, or the next session. So anyway, I retired in June 30th of 2023 after 40 years serving public education. I started my career, thank you. I started my career teaching industrial arts in 1983 in a small little school district called Miles, Iowa, with the graduating class size of 52. It's now no longer in existence. It had to combine with another school district to try and keep the numbers up. But at that point in time, I want to remind all of you in here that may have been living through that, my first passion was to farm. Well, in 1983 with the farm crisis, that was not a good option. My second favorite passion was construction. I wanted to manage the Payless Cashway on Brady Street in Davenport. That was my goal. Sophomore year in college, I was a construction management major, and I thought, well, that's not going well, because the economy was in the tank at 21% interest rates. You weren't building anything. By the way, the stock market was about 780, just to keep that in mind. So I looked at the next thing and I thought, well, teaching sounds close. Maybe I'll give that a try. And, you know, again, what was so funny at that time, there were 7 of us that graduated with industrial tech teaching major, and we were all going to the same schools applying for the same job. I got in the car together and we drove down. I said, well, you interview and then I'll interview. And then, I mean, it was a rough go. And I wasn't sure that we were even going to get a job. As a matter of fact, my wife and I were supposed to go on the Peace Corps to Swaziland. That's where we were supposed to go. We had plane tickets and everything else. And then it was like, well, we got the teaching job, and so that's where we landed. And I thought, I can do this for a couple years. And then a couple turned into 4, and then 10, and then 20. And the next thing I know, 2023, I got 4 decades under. I did end up being a building principal at North Scott Community School District, at Pleasant Valley Community School District. And then right when COVID hit, I had moved over to central office as a director of secondary education, and boy, those were 4 rough years during that COVID time. And what was so sad about that is that we were fighting tooth and nail to get all the protective devices in to keep our kids in school, to maintain the 6-foot pace, all of that. We were fighting, and yet every board meeting, we were just getting attacked constantly about mask wearing and all that. I was like, what is the matter with you? We're trying to get people in, and you're turning around fighting us every tooth and nail against that. It was ridiculous. But we made it. And I call this emergence into this seat death by 1,000 cuts. And I say that because just as Josh talked about everything he went through on the medical side, we were going through on the public education side starting in 2017 when Kim Reynolds became governor, and then all of a sudden both the House and Senate became Republican. And it started right off the bat. The very first thing, nobody ran on gutting Chapter 20 and collective bargaining, but by God, that's the first thing out of the chute they came after, and I was like, what are you doing? So that was cut number 1. cut number 2 came back with, all of a sudden now we're going to go back to using public dollars to fund private schools. Like, I have nothing against private schools. I went through a Catholic school all in elementary, and my folks paid for it. And that was our choice, and that was fine. But we weren't using public dollars to do that. That's cut number 2. Cut number 3 then came our group that was attacking us on the mask. Once the vaccination came in, by the way, they do work. They help us getting back on. Once we got that under control, the group then took their gaze, and I felt like it was playing Lord of the Rings here, where all of a sudden Saruman's gaze is coming over. We started on the book banning. And I'm like, you people are just relentless. And so, yep, I had to go through a board book banning hearing. The room was packed, and it was just ugly, absolutely ugly. And it just didn't stop. Then the next thing comes in, well, we're going to start dictating the curriculum that you need to be teaching on fetal growth and human development. No, I have been on our Human Growth and Development Committee for 19 years. Yes, we teach field development, and we've got a group of professionals and community members and religious personnel. We know what our community needs. Because why? Because government works best when it's closest to the people. That's why. The other reason that I ran is, I'm just telling you, I do not recognize the state that I live in. I just do not. And I took our own legislators to task, because one of the things that they were positive about is they wanted Iowans to learn Iowa history. Well, by God, they didn't know Iowa history. And those of you that might have watched the show Yellowstone, there's a section in there where it says, you don't even know the name of the rules, but we're going to teach them to you. And I use that line, says, well, you know what? We're going to teach you folks the history of Iowa. Iowa, the state when it was a territory, when women were considered property, not in Iowa territory of Iowa, women could own property. We were the first state when it came in to actually have somebody, a woman on the bar. We were the first state to actually have a statewide school superintendent, Phoebe Sudlow, that became a statewide school superintendent. We were the state that had a black officer corps in Fort Dodge during the Civil War. We were the state that allowed the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints come across Iowa when they were being persecuted in Illinois. We allowed them to come by saying, we recognize that. What do we have in Cedar Rapids? The first Muslim mosque we have in Cedar Rapids, because we recognize religious diversity. That's who the Iowa are, the Iowa is that I know. And quite frankly, I've been molded during my formative years by Governor Robert Ray, because in 1974, Robert Ray signed the collective bargaining, Chapter 20. Robert Ray did that. In 1974, believe it or not, Robert Ray and our state senator, Chuck Grassley, developed the AEA system, because out of Chuck Grassley's mouth, he said, we are going to provide services to students in this state regardless of where they're going to live, and we're going to do it through the Area Education Agency. That is the Chuck Grassley that we used to know. I don't know what happened to him, but he's gone. And then in 1975, when Robert Ray welcomed and opened the door for who? Our Vietnamese refugees. That's the Iowa nice that I know and grew up with. And all of you in here know it takes years and years to develop relationships and trust that can be torn down in days. And that is exactly what's happening in this state. Why? Because now take a look at 1974, fast forward 50 years later, and now we've got a governor that's sending a state patrol down to Texas to block any refugees coming across the state. Now we have a governor and a legislature that came in and completely dismantled our AEA system, completely. We're still going to be living with the repercussions of that, because when I sat on the school board, we were sitting there talking about developing mini AEAs now of the small school districts going together to get these services provided. You can't believe this. And right now, the same thing is happening at this very moment with our early childhood Iowa districts being torn apart and basically consolidating all the power into one person, Kelly Garcia, with the Health and Human Services. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The other thing that I found kind of repulsive, to be honest, is that through all of this, we have been looking at trying to slow down, stop what's going on in Des Moines. And through all the things that Iowa was first in, we turned around this last legislative session. And I'm not a person that really cries much, but when we stripped the civil rights for our transgender folks out of our Constitution, it was absolutely the most disgusting thing I have ever seen. And to think that I was sitting in a Senate seat in which the shoulders that brought our civil rights before us was being torn away, it was absolutely unbelievable. Just could not believe it. And it didn't make any difference who was down there fighting for it. So where are we at now? Where we used to be number 1 or 2 in public education, we're now down to number 4, but we've replaced that becoming number 1 or 2 in cancer rates. Where we used to be with clean water, now we've got 93% of our rivers so polluted that we can't even either swim in the lakes or participate in the rivers or even draw water out of the river without having to spend millions and millions of dollars to clean the nitrates out of it. Also, we now rank 52. We're not even 50th out of states. We've got 2 territories that are higher than us about OB/GYN services. 56 counties have no maternal health services for our women. None. 52. So, where we were at in the Iowa that we were proud to live in, we are going to have to fight and scrape that back every step of the way. This next legislative session, I'm telling you, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. What we're going to be doing is trying to run out the clock. That's what we're going to try to do. Every single legislative maneuver that we can do and to put a barrier up, to slow it down and run it out and get ourselves to 2026. Let Governor Kim Reynolds move along with her family, and then we get somebody else in here that's going to look out for the Iowa family. That's what we need to get. By the way, I want to come back to that civil rights stripping. I really didn't know a lot about how the legislative process worked. As a matter of fact, I'm ashamed to admit, I had never been to the Iowa Capitol until I was sworn in. But when I watched the process go through of the subcommittee, then going to the committee, and then making it to the floor for debate, that's just on the Senate side, and then we trade bills, and it has to go through the whole process. That transgender civil rights stripping happened in 72 hours. 72 hours. So when government wants to get something done, it can do it. When both sides are all lined up and you've got your executive ready to sign something positive, it can happen. But that wasn't a good thing. So one of my mottos is that it doesn't become real until it becomes personal. With the things that I have talked about, what is it that moves each and every one of you where all of a sudden you say enough is enough, it's now become personal? And then we act, and then we act. The problem is that if we wait that long for some of these things to become personal, it's too late. And we're at that time right now. And I say that because while I'm standing up here running for the seat or representing Iowans, it can't happen without all of you in here saying, what can I do? And yes, a donation that's fine. But I'm telling you, as Democrats, we are rarely going to ever fundraise the Republicans. It's not going to happen. But I'll tell you what, we will outwork them any day, at any time. So please, Do not ever underestimate writing 5 postcards or 10. Writing a letter to the editor that shines a light on an issue that's important to you. And it doesn't have to be fancy. Picking up the phone, calling to say, hey, we need you to get out to vote. And those of you that can, getting out to knock doors and having that personal connection and relationship is huge. So with that, I want to conclude by saying, make it real, make it personal, and let's get after this. We've got a short 14 months to make a difference and start getting this turned around. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.
And now you know. Can we turn this back on? And now you, okay. And now you know. Now you know how you win a special election. All right? You start from someone who knows the community, served in the school system for decades and decades, known by all the students and all the parents, who has the commitment, who has the fire in the belly, who has the ability to speak and the ability to communicate his values to all the people in his district. And when you do that with his kind of fire and enthusiasm, and a few other volunteers are getting on board, you can flip 20 points over on a previously red district. So, Mike, I got to tell you, it has been so much fun to have him in our caucus, and so valuable. Someone who knows public education literally from top to bottom, all the different jobs. How many times this year did he say, well, you know, that sounds like a good idea, but it doesn't work very well because it takes too long, it costs too much, kids don't respond, whatever. He helped to guide us, and if we can get to a majority, he will help to write educational policy to set the educational standards for the 21st century that will give our kids the start in life that they deserve. Mr. Zimmer, Senator Zimmer, you did a great job with your first campaign. I'm sure you will do as well with your second campaign. I'm sorry it just comes so quickly on the heels of your first, but you know, and you take, and then you take the, have you seen Josh Turek's intro video? I mean, it's one thing to walk up to a door, even if it's climbing the hills, and Silvera can tell you, there were a lot more hills in Sioux City than I ever imagined. But when you have to haul yourself up there, you know, with your hands, and drag that wheelchair behind you, damn, your arms must get awful strong. It's quite a thing. Yeah, there's a lot wrong with this state. Mike went over some of it. My worst day in the legislature, my worst day, not just last session, my worst day ever, 23 years, was that day that they made it legal to discriminate against transgender people. And I've got a transgender youth in my family, not in this state, but who's affected by that. And I've gotten to know some of the families and some of the younger children, transgender. They're perfectly wonderful kids. They're sweet and nice and friendly, and why the hell are we putting upon them the way we are? We got to stop that. We got to stop that. We also have to turn around education funding. Just this afternoon, some of you know, I'm a numbers kind of geek. I've been tracking the last 8 years since Reynolds came in, how far behind inflation our K-12 funding has been. This last year was $440 million. Next year it's going to be over $500 million. We're running about $1,000 per kid below where we were 8 years ago. And the Republicans will tell you, oh, we put more money into education. Yeah. If your boss gives you a $1,000 raise, but you go home and you check your family's bills and your family's bills have gone up $3,000, Are you ahead or behind? The only way you balance your budget is cut $2,000 off it. You have more dollars, but when they don't go as far, then you have to cut back. And that's what our school superintendents have had to do, just like that example, only with a few more zeros on the end of the digits. Yeah, there's a lot that we need to do. There's a lot we need to do. But we're going to work next year. We're going to use our no longer super minority. We're going to use our 1/3 plus 1 to enforce some discipline. And then we're going to go into next year's elections, and we're going to recruit hardworking candidates like the ones that we've seen here tonight and heard from. And we're going to win some elections that a lot of people don't think that we have a chance in. The Republicans have screwed up. They have overreached. They have split their own party out over eminent domain. The vouchers thing is wildly unpopular in a lot of rural areas. 43 counties, I think it was, have no private schools at all. We've got some opportunities out there. But thanks to you for chipping in a few bucks tonight, and thanks to all of you for getting, I'm going to thank you in advance for getting out and working next year. We will need the door knockers, we will need the letter writers, we will need people to do the hard work of campaigning, but it will be worth it. We can elect a new governor, we can elect a new U.S. Senator. I think we can flip half of the congressional seats at least. I mean, 2018, we had 3 out of the 4, okay? So we can do better, and I think you take the energy in this room and the commitment, and we will do better. Now, there's one way that I want to send us out tonight, and that's with a little musical inspiration. You guys ready to go? Ready to go. Okay. Woody Guthrie was one of my favorite singers, and Pete Seeger and Peter, Paul, and Mary, and a song that just captures the nature of our blessed land. This land is your land. If you don't know all the verses, that's okay. I'm told that they do, and everybody can chime in on the chorus. So.